Okay, now we turn to our gospel passage, which is unique because we are celebrating the resurrection, but our gospel passage comes during the time of the Last Supper, which of course is before the resurrection, before the crucifixion, before the trial, before the suffering, during the Passover, during the Passover, during the Last Supper. So it's kind of a unique thing. John chapter 13, verses 31 through 33a, and then 34 to 35. So we just skip a little part of verse 33. When Judas had left them, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and God will glorify him at once. My children, I will be with you only a little while longer. I give you a new commandment. Love one another as I have loved you. So you also should, as I have loved you, so you also should love one another. This is how all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Okay, super good. What's going on? Context. So we know, like I said, it's during the Last Supper. Jesus has already washed the disciples' feet, and then he announced that there was going to be one who betrayed. And it seems like tells John, maybe secretly, privately, perhaps, whatever, but it seems like he even tells John who it is that is going to betray him, and that is Judas. And Judas leaves. He abandons. He goes, and the disciples, the rest of the apostles, they think that he was going to take care of something for the poor, for the Passover, but he's actually gone to betray Jesus. So anyway, Judas has left, and right when Judas leaves, Jesus says, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him." In fact, he uses this word glorify or glorified 5 times within the course of just a couple of sentences. So what's going on? So the glory of Jesus, of course, we know is his ultimate reign, R-E-I-G-H-N, his ultimate reign in the kingdom of heaven, eternally. He's the king of the universe, the king of heaven and the king of earth. He's the king of everything. That's his glory. He is currently, we could say, departed from his glory. He remains God, and he's always the king, ultimately. But he departed from the eternal kingdom to come to our earthly kingdom to die for us, to suffer for us, to fight for us. And how is he going to return to that? Well, the way that he's ordained it to take place is through his passion, his death, and his resurrection. So it's through his suffering. Remember what Paul says, it is through many sufferings that is necessary for us to suffer, to go through hardships in order to attain eternal life. So Jesus is going through this incredible hardship, of course. But it is through that hardship that leads to his glorification, his return to sit at the right hand of the Father, where he will reign as king forever. So when Judas goes to betray Jesus, he doesn't know this, but he's ultimately sending Jesus on his way back to the Father over the course of time. It's going to take a few days, obviously, but that's what's taking place. So for Jesus, it's like, okay, well, now is my glory. And God is glory. He's going to be glorified in all of this because it's ultimately going to reveal so many different things. It's going to reveal that everything that I've been saying up to this point is true. It's going to reveal who I am. It's going to reveal who God is, who the Father is, and how much he loves everyone and loves us all. It's going to reveal that the kingdom of heaven is yours for those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness. It's going to reveal so many different things that when you go through suffering, you can know that I'm with you in it. There's so much that's going to be revealed, and all of that revelation is going to point to the glory of God and who he is. It's really beautiful to just think about this. Like Jesus, theoretically in his worst moment, like one of his closest friends is betraying him. Instead of being sunk in the darkness of it, he instead rises above and he's like, no, this is it. Like this is the moment that leads to my glory. Remember, he doesn't resist. He doesn't resist the suffering that the Father allows him to undergo, but instead he willingly embraces it. He takes up his cross and he follows the path, the way of the Father. So good. Okay, so then he turns to the 12 and he says something strange. He says, "My children." A more literal translation says, "little children." It's kind of a strange thing that he would call them children. Like these are grown men who are following him, and maybe some of them are younger than him, but some are maybe older than him too. We don't actually know how old the apostles were. But nonetheless, like they're grown men, and he calls them children, like his disciples, that he's training to be like him, my little children. That's kind of strange. One Bible scholar I was listening to, he proposed this as a possibility, that the Passover meal, which is what the Last Supper was a meal where a father of a family would claim his role as father, not that he ever unclaimed it, but he would claim his role and he would be the one leading the meal. So Jesus perhaps is claiming this role as the father figure, as the authority figure. And so who else would be at the meal but his children? And so that's why he perhaps calls them children. It could also just be that he understands this like spiritual fatherhood that he has over them in calling them to himself and forming them as his disciples. We don't ultimately know, but it is kind of a strange thing. Nonetheless, he says, I will be with you only a little while longer. That for them perhaps was very striking. Like Jesus was always with them for the last 3 years. And now he's like, I'm only going to be with you for a little bit longer. And maybe they had different ideas about what it is that he came to do. Certainly, I bet it wasn't part of their ideas that he was going to die. This death of a crucifixion, this death of a criminal. Certainly, I bet it wasn't part of their plan that he was going to leave them, depart, and ascend to the Father. And so for him to say this, it's like, oh gosh, I don't know what's going on, But then he says, okay, so with that in mind, I'm giving you a new commandment. And this, too, is something I think for us as Christians, we're so accustomed to hearing it because we know that Jesus gives us commandments. But again, for that time, for Jesus to say, I give you a new commandment, well, who gives commandments? God gives commandments. So Jesus, in a way here, is claiming divine authority. So I'm giving you a commandment. It's nothing new necessarily, but new in maybe like leveling up, because he says, love one another. That's the command, love. Love is the command. It's not an option of the gospel. It's not an option of the Christian way of life. It is a command to love. But what is that word love? The word he uses is agapeo or agape. That is a sacrificial kind of love. And that's why he says, as I have loved you, so you also should love one another. How has Jesus loved us? Well, he's literally poured out every drop of blood that he has. He has departed from perfect glory in heaven to take on our human nature, the lowliness of it, to enter into the mess of this world that we have created, so that he can lift us up into the world where he dwells with the Father and the Holy Spirit forever. He has been abundantly sacrificial, abundantly generous with us. And so now Jesus says, as I have loved you, so you also should love one another. The law of the old covenant called men and women to love with a human kind of love their neighbor. Now Jesus is saying, no longer merely as a human kind of love, I want you now to love with a divine love, the very love that I have for you in laying down my life for you. In fact, he goes one step further. He says, this is how all will know that you are my disciples, how all will know that you are my mathetes, my learners, my students, if you have this love for one another, if you have love for one another. It's an incredibly high challenge, like to think about. Sometimes people come to confession and they'll say, Father, I don't know what to confess. And it's like, well, have you loved people with the same love that Jesus loved you with? Have you laid down your life for your enemies? Have you been abundantly generous to those who seem like whether even sometimes for those who seem like they deserve it? Have you been like sacrificially generous to them? Sometimes it's like I don't even know about that, let alone my enemies or those who seem like they don't deserve it. I don't know that people could look at my life all the time and see that I'm a disciple, because I don't know that I always love with this divine kind of love. It's a striking thing. So just to point out, love is the essential characteristic of a discipleship. I've been thinking about this, and I'm going to preach about discipleship this coming weekend to my people. And there's so many different ways that we can talk about what discipleship is. So many different ways. But I think it ultimately, and I don't know that I'm going to get into some of those ways, but I think at its core, there has to be this love. And of course, we know this is the great commandment that Jesus gives, to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. To love with that sacrificial, divine agape, that kind of a love. So that's like the essential, that's like the foundation of every disciple of Jesus, which is hard. It's a high standard. We obviously need God's grace, obviously. And so we just ask for that grace to pour it out upon us so that we can be generous with him and generous with other people as we strive for the kingdom, strive to be his disciples. Oh, so good and so challenging all at the same time. So beautiful. So there we go. Our gospel passage. It's a shorter passage again this week, and we'll look forward to our second reading, which is different, but we just continue to walk through Revelation, and it's going to be great. So I look forward to it. Peace.